London, often seen as a global financial hub, generates £58 billion, $652 billion, annually. If it were an independent nation, it would rank as the 22nd largest economy in the world, surpassing Argentina and Sweden. However, this wealth is not evenly distributed across the UK. The southeast region alone contributes nearly half of the UK's GDP, despite making up only a third of the population. Without London's economic output, the UK's living standards would drop by 14%, bringing it closer to the poorest US state, Mississippi. Over the past decade, economic conditions in the UK have deteriorated significantly. Real disposable income, earnings after taxes and benefits, has stagnated, while the cost of living has surged. Essential goods and services have become more expensive, housing has become unaffordable, and the UK now holds the highest number of homeless people in the developed world. These issues stem from long-term political and economic mismanagement, creating a crisis with no easy solution in sight. Historically, Britain was the first nation to industrialize, but ironically, it is now on the path to de-industrialization. Inflation continues to rise. Economic growth remains sluggish, and housing prices have soared, rising by more than 2,200% in a single month. Yet these pressing issues receive little attention in mainstream media, reflecting a broader pattern of economic distress being ignored or downplayed. The 2008 financial crisis marked the beginning of Britain's economic downturn. Like many other countries, the UK suffered severe financial losses, but its approach to recovery was uniquely damaging. After borrowing £141 billion to bail out failing banks, the government introduced austerity measures instead of investing in infrastructure, wage increases, or social programs. There were no major tax cuts, no efforts to control inflation, and no job creation programs, all of which could have helped stabilize the economy. As a result, household incomes declined, and then stagnated for 15 years, marking what economists call a lost decade. In 2007, the average British household was 8% less wealthy than a Norwegian household and 6% behind an American household. Today, these gaps have widened to 20% and 16% respectively. The continued loss of purchasing power has weakened consumer spending, reduced economic growth, and worsened living standards. Even within the corporate sector, short-term gains were prioritized over long-term investments in productivity. Productivity, a key driver of economic growth, plummeted after 2008 due to a lack of investment in business and technology. Before the financial crisis, the UK's productivity grew at nearly 2% per year, but this trend collapsed. Once the second most productive economy in the G7 after the US, the UK now ranks second to last. This decline in productivity explains stagnant wages, weak business growth, and a struggling private sector. The UK's economic instability was further amplified by Brexit, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the Ukraine war. Brexit, in particular, had a devastating impact on foreign direct investment, FDI. According to the Bank of England, Brexit led to a 25% reduction in FDI between 2016 and 2021, driving businesses and capital away from Britain. Then came COVID-19, forcing the government to borrow £280 billion to support businesses and workers. While this was a necessary response, it occurred when interest rates were at historic lows, 0.1%. Making debt repayments manageable, until the Ukraine war triggered a global energy crisis. As energy prices soared, the UK government introduced one of the largest financial relief programs in Europe, adding £60 to £100 billion to the national debt. Although this temporarily cushioned households from rising costs, it pushed Britain's debt burden to record levels. The cost of servicing this debt jumped from £40 billion to £100 billion per year, a £60 billion increase, nearly equal to the country's entire defense budget. Despite a post-COVID recovery in other G7 nations, the UK's workforce participation never rebounded. While official unemployment stands at 4.4%, 1.5 million people. The real issue is the hidden labor shortage. 11 million people are missing from the workforce. These individuals are classified as economically inactive rather than unemployed, meaning they are not officially counted in labor statistics. This 11 million shortfall includes 2.1 million students, age 16 to 24, who are in full-time education, 3.5 million retirees, aged 50 plus, who have exited the workforce early, 1 million individuals, aged 25 to 49, who are unable to work due to caregiving responsibilities. With so many people missing from the workforce, businesses have struggled to find workers. forcing the UK to rely on immigration to sustain its economy. Migrants from South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa have filled many vacancies, but this rapid influx of workers has intensified social tensions, leading to nationwide protests and riots in over 20 towns in August 2024. The UK's economic decline is the result of a series of poor policy decisions, external shocks, and structural inefficiencies. The country is now trapped in a cycle of rising debt, stagnant productivity, increasing inequality, and an aging workforce. These challenges make it increasingly difficult for Britain to restore economic stability. Despite these struggles, London remains one of the wealthiest and most innovative cities in the world. Economic cycles eventually shift, and Britain has the potential to recover. However, for now, the UK functions like a struggling economy attached to a global financial hub. Whether the country can reverse its decline or sink further into economic stagnation remains uncertain.